Right.
All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of Spilling Tea with the G's. I'm Nick Galarakis. Along with me, of course, my brother Steve Galarakis. And we are delighted to have Stephanie Scoletti on with us as our fourth episode. And Stephanie, we're pumped to have you.
Thank
How are
you.
you doing today?
I'm awesome. The sun is shining. It's like 60 degrees in Pittsburgh. I have my guest with me today, Mr. Terrible Tao here. So we are representing from the Black and Gold, and couldn't be more honored to be hanging out with you guys, our lovely rivals.
Nice. Yeah, of course. I think the elephant in the room here is the Browns and Steelers gear going on. So, for those that don't know, Steve and I are both in Cleveland, Ohio. And as you guessed it, Stephanie is in some city in Pennsylvania that we won't talk about. No, but
I
all
love it.
good fun. All good fun, right? Um,
Exactly.
hopefully both teams don't stink it up this year. So, uh,
Hopefully they get to play. That's all I care about.
right, right. First things first. Let's get a ball on the field. So, well, hey, let's get right into it, Stephanie. Again, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of what we're trying to do at Elephants and Tea and everything. And you've been doing a lot of cool things recently, and not just this past year, but obviously in the past too. But you have been one busy person. But before we kind of go into what you're doing right now, I think it'd be great for everybody just to kind of know a little bit more about you and how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in dealing with cancer.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Stephen. Born and raised in Pittsburgh. I was 19 years old, and just 2 weeks before my 20th birthday, leukemia decided to give me an early birthday present. So I was truly blindsided. This was 2 weeks before my junior year in college when I was diagnosed with leukemia. I had some symptoms over the summer of 2005, but I'm 19. We kind of just brush it off and want to move forward and don't really think of it. So I had an argument with my parents one night and said, just let me sleep off these symptoms of having a fever and all this water retention and random bruises. And they, of course, did not want to listen to me. So they called the PCP. This was on a Wednesday night. 2 days later, I had a bone marrow biopsy. The next day it was confirmed leukemia. 2 days later, I started chemo. So it was like bam, bam, bam. And didn't even have time to think about it other than when am I getting back to class and when is this going to be over? I didn't even know how chemotherapy was administered. That's how little I knew about cancer. I didn't even know at the time, full disclosure, that leukemia was a cancer. I thought it was some other disease, but I didn't categorize it as cancer. So I learned a lot within those first couple of weeks. When I was diagnosed, when I was officially diagnosed, I was in the hospital room by myself, and an oncologist walked in and said, chemo starts Monday. This is going to be the protocol. There's a chance you may not be able to have kids in your future. These are just the risks that you're going to have to take. And he walked out of the room, and I was by myself. And so let the games begin, right? And so I had a ton of support from my family, don't get me wrong, but I was by far the youngest on the floor in the hospital and the youngest in the outpatient treatment center here in Pittsburgh. And I kid you not, I mean, I was so grateful to survive and respond very well to the treatment, which was about a year long of intensive chemotherapy. And I had brain radiation. I had spinal taps where they injected chemo in my spine. It was rigorous. I mean, I faced my own mortality, right? Like we all do, but I don't know, from day one, I really just thought there was no other choice but to survive and beat this thing and share my story. And so that's exactly what I did. I was an open book, and the more I shared my story, the more the community rallied behind me and said, you have something here and you need to do something with this. And I just grew a passion out of it. I was in school to be a pharmacist, and when I went back to school in the fall of 2006, I had organic chemistry and physics and calculus and this crazy chemo brain, and I was basically failing. Like my heart wasn't in it, my brain sure as heck wasn't in it. And so I changed my major to social work because there was a social worker that saved me immensely when I was in the hospital, and I knew I wanted to give back. I just didn't know in what capacity. So fast forward, I'm graduating college, and I found a local charity here called the Cancer Caring Center. within a year, I started offering young adult cancer support groups because I recognized firsthand that there was nothing out there for us locally. And Stupid Cancer, which was a different name at the time, I'm Too Young for This, I think is what it was called.
Yep.
They were just starting out, and that was it, really. There was nothing else available, at least to my knowledge at that time. So anyways, I started offering a support group. Within 2 years, it grew beyond belief. And then in 2014, I realized that us young adults, while we need to sit around and talk about cancer and all the challenges that we face, some of those challenges are drowning in debt, having all this financial toxicity, and needing a life, right? Needing to have fun, needing to take a break while we're watching everyone our age graduate college and get the job of their dreams and get married and start having kids, all while we're sitting in a treatment chair or figuring out who we are once treatment ends. We have no idea, so being so stuck in life, I thought these guys need a social life. So we expanded the program to offer not only support groups, but social outings and financial assistance. So we really stuck with that model since 2014. And as this remained a program of another charity, every year we grew attendance, we grew the community in Pittsburgh, and I saw the need only growing. And so in the fall of 2019, just a few months ago, I had a long talk with my husband, and I said, it's time. This can no longer be just a program of something. It needs to be the something. Because at least in Western Pennsylvania, there's nothing else like we're doing for this population, and it just continues to multiply. So we have a lot of work to do, but now we are officially a 501c3 nonprofit, and that's how I found you guys. So it's just been such an honor to collaborate with people like you two and just continue to build the community here in our city and just expand the support. I'm sure we'll get into the nitty gritty of,
Hotel down.
Time out. I'm sure we'll get into the gritty of COVID and all that it has brought us as far as stressors and silver linings, but it's really been fulfilling and interesting to see what we've been able to do, having launched March 1st, with 2 weeks later going into quarantine. So that is our story, and I really feel that cancer gave me a purpose. And I'm not kidding when I say there were times when I thought I was gonna die. Like I couldn't eat one cracker for 24 hours. I was just that sick. But it keeps you humble, right? To look back on those moments and really relate to the survivors now, saying like, I get that. Like I was there, I get where you're coming from, but to be these professionals where we are in this setting right now in the sector, to now be able to help them out in a different capacity. So
right.
I could talk about it all day, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, kudos for everything that you've done and everything that you've been through. I know
Thank
that
you.
Steve can relate to a lot of what you said and what you went through. I saw him just shaking his head, and no offense, Steve, your face was going red, and just hearing some of that stuff. So I know how much you can relate to that. And
Absolutely.
as far as the Young Adult Survivors United, it's so funny. Every time I explain to people what you're doing, I accidentally actually say it's Young Survivors United, and I'm like, wait, no, that's not right. And it's Young Adult Survivors United.
That's fine. You can say Young Survivors.
Close enough, right?
That's fine.
But no, I know that I'm thrilled for you to take on your own nonprofit organization. I know you've done some amazing work previously, but when it's on your own, and we obviously, Steve and I and our family, in running the Stephen J. White Cancer Research Fund, and of course we weren't nearly as involved from the start when my parents originally started it, but over the past few years we've obviously done a lot more with elephants and tea and things like that. So it is definitely a whole new world, and purpose, I think, is a great way to put it too, in that you really have that sense of purpose and helping people going through what we know to go through. And I have to have a funny laugh at when you said you didn't even know leukemia was a cancer. I will say when Steve was sick, and it's funny, I actually think that you guys were sick the same year with your first cancers, 15 years ago, 14 years ago.
Yeah, it'll be 15 in August. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve?
It'll be, yeah, you're a half a year ahead of me. I was diagnosed in March of 2006.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
So as far as like how things were operating was very similar, right? As far
Mhm.
as the types of conversation that oncologists have with you and things like that. But I know for myself, the first time walking into Steve's room, you're expecting that to hear, because I was in college at the time and Steve was in high school,
Mhm.
walking in there and thinking that he's going to be hooked up to all these monitors and tubes and whatever. And in fact, I think Steve was just sitting on the couch laughing with friends, because again, that's just the way cancer works. You don't see it, right? And I
Right.
think that's the one side of it too. Same thing, chemotherapy, had no idea how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And even when Steve had a bone marrow transplant with his second cancer, when they told us it was a bag that was like this big, essentially going to be infused into Steve's body, for some reason, I don't know what we were expecting, but I thought it was going to be like a surgery or something. And the fact that it was literally like a drip, right, Steve, with your bone marrow?
It basically looked like a darker version of red blood cells in a big bag just going into you.
Yeah.
One thing that I found interesting, just in everyone's kind of cancer story, but one thing that you talked about specifically was when you were first diagnosed, you were, I'm gonna get it wrong, 18 or 19? 19, I think you said?
I turned 20 2 weeks after I was diagnosed. Yeah.
So yeah, you were
Yeah.
19, 20 years old. I was 15 going on 16 when I was diagnosed. And just how those 4 years make such a dramatic difference in the way they treat you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was diagnosed, again, I was 15 years old. They couldn't tell me anything without my parents being there. And also they coddled me so much. I was down in the radiation oncology wing the first day I was being diagnosed after they had scanned me and realized what was going on. And they were having they found that I liked science, and they brought in one of the physicists from the hospital to come and talk to me, just to chit chat with me during the time period. And throughout this whole process, it was a very kind of coddling experience. Whereas, you're laying in a hospital and a doctor comes in and goes, "You have cancer. It's starting in 3 days. Good luck."
Okay, bye. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted coddled then, and I didn't even have an option. They said you have to go to Shadyside Hospital, and I didn't know at the time I could have gone to Children's Hospital. Not that I don't know that I would have. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's night and day the way you're treated there versus the adult hospital. And it's interesting. Just last week in our support group meeting, someone said, "Boy, wouldn't it be nice for us to be treated the same way the kids are treated at Children's?" And I said, "It would, but unfortunately, that's not reality."
Right. I think you said it right too. It's I think anyone that's 19, right, being in college too, when you have the option of being with adults or kids, you're going to pick adults almost every time.
Yeah.
Because again, you're such a deer in the headlights when you get diagnosed with cancer. You really have no idea. It's after the fact. You're like, wait, oh my gosh, what's going on?
And I was, so the second time I was diagnosed, Stephanie, I was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my freshman year of college. And they gave me the option of choosing to go to the adult side or stay on the pediatric side. But because I had been sick once before, I just had the wherewithal to go, well, are there HEPA filters on the adult side? Can my parents come in and can I eat food in my own room without my parents having to wear a gown and all of these things? And they said, no, they'd have to wear gowns and stuff when they came in and saw you if it was on the adult side. And I was like, I'll stay on the Pete side with them. It was purely because of those few specific things. But again, who has the wherewithal to ask that if you've never been to the hospital before? No one.
Exactly. And I mean, maybe you can educate me too on how Cleveland hospitals are run, but we don't have a young adult clinic here or a cancer center that has a young adult wing here. It just doesn't exist. You're either a kid or you're an adult. There's no middle ground here.
So it's kind of the same, except for, and again, I'm not sure how, when people come in with the diagnosis, how it works where you're at. But at least at university hospitals here, I'm pretty sure at the Cleveland Clinic as well. Obviously those are the two major cancer hospitals here in Cleveland. But at least at UH, I know for a fact they do this thing called tumor board, where they have the peds and the adult doctors come together. And that started about 8 years ago, where or anyone who came in with a diagnosis of cancer, whether they're a pediatric or an adult patient, there was a collaboration between the two sides. at least on how to do their treatment and their protocol. But other than that, it's, everybody says they have an adolescent young adult thing, but really it's adult and peds, and then the peds kind of handles a lot of it. But again, if you're on the adult side and you get diagnosed in both of these hospitals, most of the time they don't even know what AYA even is, and they don't even send you to the right place, and you're stuck with nurses that don't even know what AYA is.
Right.
So,
and even to add to that, I think Steve was kind of going there with university hospitals specifically. Yes, there's an adolescent young adult program and group and set of social workers, one of which is on our board actually. And we have the director of AYA from the Cleveland Clinic on our board now as well too, Dr. Stephanie Thomas. And so I know that they're always, both hospitals have hurdles that they're trying to grow and do different things. But historically, and not just in Cleveland, but I feel like in most places, AYA is definitely more on the pediatric side. And it's tough still, for whatever reason, to get the adult side to work with the so-called AYA people. Their adult side, I know specifically at the clinic, I'm pretty sure at UH as well, it's very disease focused.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily a young adult, older adult. Once you are on the adult side, it is what's your disease, not what's your age. And that definitely has issues, in my opinion, from a psychological standpoint. I think both of you would agree with me on that. And so at least that's how it's structured in Cleveland. For example, when Steve started going through his third and fourth cancer this past fall, we saw it immediately how there wasn't really much communication without Steve initiating it to be connected with the AYA social workers. Right. So that's, there seems to be a struggle, and again, not just at Cleveland area hospitals, and I'm curious to see how Pittsburgh is, but that seems to be the common theme across all hospitals in the States.
Well, and the effort is there, right? The passion is there and the effort is there. It's just how to put it into fruition and make it happen, So we're starting the conversations here in Pittsburgh. I've been I hate to use the word aggressive, but I've been very at the forefront of pushing these conversations. Let's talk about it. Let's look at the volume of young adults that you're seeing. Let's look at the volume of AYAs that you're seeing, and let's talk about it, because the hospital systems are under the same umbrella, at least. Right. So what does that look like, and how can we join forces, if you will?
Well, and I think it's people like you that make the difference, right? And really start those conversations and getting people going in the right direction. Because, and that wasn't trying to throw any of the awesome people at UH or the clinic under the bus, because they're so focused on their patients, right? And it's difficult for somebody to be almost like a program manager, in a sense, as far as getting things done. To create these programs. And that's where, like I said, like what you're doing is so amazing. And I think for the people in the Pittsburgh area and Western PA to have that, because how the system works too. So you're able to help kind of guide people along the way and kick somebody in the butt when you need to.
Well, and I was going to say, Stephanie, it's, as you've probably seen, it's, and on the adult side, this kind of stuff usually tends to fall on the social workers. Not on doctors.
Which are far and few now, because there are less social workers and more navigators, right? So everything is kind of shifting and changing as time moves forward. The social workers were the only people that I had contact with who could help me with something like this back in 2005. It doesn't look that way today. I completely am with you with that, on that, I should say, completely with you on that.
Well, and, and just to throw one more of my, experiences out there was, just when I was, as my brother was speaking to, when I was re-diagnosed back in September with my third and fourth cancer, even with the 14 years of knowledge that I have of advocating and doing all of these things, it was like herding cats on the adult side. And I literally and I used a social worker, and it was the only way I could get through to some of these doctors until my one surgeon took over. But in that moment, even all of my medical knowledge and talent in this area essentially did me no good. And it was terrifying and frustrating, but so thankful that I did have my social worker, Ann, who was able to do all of these things and help me get, kind of quarterback,
right.
Of which Cleveland has a better one than Pittsburgh, but yeah, we had that social worker there. So.
And you know what? It's kudos to you for recognizing that, because we know that that's an easy thing is, okay, go to the social worker and go to the staff. I can't tell you how much I still have to remind patients and encourage people. They are there for you, and that's their job they want to help you out, you know? So we just have to keep reminding people of that, whether it's through these conversations or other ways via social media, or just, you know, in our Zoom meetings that we have now constantly, however that may be, but constantly advocating. I mean, that is so important, more now than ever. So thank you for sharing that, because I completely agree.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sweet. So yeah, I feel like we could go on and on about the intricacies of hospitals. You know, but as far as, so here's a question for you. Young Adult Survivors United, are you calling yourself like YASU? Because that would be hilarious, by the way, because that's hello in Greek. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is. So it
This
just kind
is
of like,
meant to be.
I was like looking at my notes going, wait, that spells YASU. That's
It
hilarious.
sure does.
It's a little bit different spelling, but close enough. But are you guys, are you calling yourself YASU or Young Survivors United?
Both, but we get a lot of enjoyment out of saying, yes, you. Who? Yes, you.
Oh, that's so Pittsburgh.
So now it's becoming like a chant. Like I'm in a couple Marco Polo groups, and one of the girls was like, I had this thought recently where I was just like, you know, I want to go up to someone and be like, who are you talking about? Yes, you. Who, me? Yes, you. Like she just kept going on and on and on. And I was, I did like a slow clap, because it's so funny. We use it all. We say the full name, we say YASU, but it flows better when you say yes, you, right? So
Yes, you.
to answer your question, yes.
God, that's so Pittsburgh. Just like the whole accent there, like the yes, you.
Us Yinzers say yes, you.
You went the Yinzers route. All right, cool.
Of course.
So, you know, you did talk a little bit about, you know, why you started YASU. I'm going to get that. I might just keep calling it YASU, but we'll go
It
YASU.
sounds great. Keep it coming.
Yeah, right. You know, as far as the support that you provide to the folks in Pittsburgh and Western PA, and you know, it's just so awesome, because I feel as though at times, you know, Elephants in Tea is a national organization with the magazine that we have, where the Stephen G. Fund, our parent company, is more of a regional type group. And I think it's sometimes people forget the importance of the regional or city focused groups that you started, that people don't, while it's really cool, like don't get me wrong, I obviously love what we're doing with Elephants in Tea, but for those that are going through the treatments and really kind of in their own backyard, they need that support locally. Have you found that, I guess with everything you're doing, is it's pretty much just been the Pittsburgh people in Pittsburgh and Western PA that have come across you? Have you worked with people outside of Pittsburgh? Just kind of curious, you know, your reach, are you really trying to stay focused on the Western PA right now? I guess is where I'm going with this.
It's a great question, Nick. And to be honest with you, when we talk about visions and purpose and missions, we obviously wanted to start out by being a local nonprofit. I certainly don't want to always think small,
Right.
because we know that, well, we've already recognized that Western Pennsylvania needs this, right? It's just no doubt. And when we say Western Pennsylvania, we're really talking about Pittsburgh and the surrounding counties, but we're now even expanding up into Erie, Pennsylvania, because again, there's nothing there for young adults. There are for those with breast cancer and other things, but nothing for all young adult cancer survivors. And so we have recognized that it's so important, and this is national. Anyone who's watching this, listening, and Stephen, you'll probably agree, is you need that community, you need that safe space, you need to meet with others in person and share experiences, and really just have people there where you don't have to specifically say what's bothering you for someone to understand and support you. So building that camaraderie locally, I think, is so powerful, no matter which city it is. My dream is that every city has a community like ours, because I started YASU because we outgrew the program and the community became so big that it was becoming a challenge for me to lead one support group with 20 plus people in it, everyone needing to talk in an hour and a half. Like, that just wasn't going to happen, you know? So we are recognizing that it is so significant to have your own herd and your own community locally, but we've also found the silver lining that when you offer virtual support, already within 1 month, I have survivors joining our virtual support groups from Idaho, North Carolina, from Florida, from New York. I had an inquiry from Toronto already. So, you know, we're picking up speed because they don't have anything locally.
Right.
And I had a talk with my existing group members here locally, and I said, what does that look like for you guys? Do you still want to have a local group because they have that relationship that's already been built? And then what does that look like if someone from Idaho joins us? And I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear from them. And what you can probably guess is they said, open the gates, let them in. If they don't have support, this is where they can have it. You know, it does not matter where you live. It matters like this, how we see each other is how they're seeing each other. And that's what they need at the end of the day. So moving forward, to answer your question, we will absolutely always be devoted to Western Pennsylvania. Absolutely. The financial assistance particularly will probably remain regional.
Sure.
But the support groups, as far as offering them virtually, for now at least, will always remain on a national level, because I don't care who you are, where you are, if you are a young adult and you need the support and you don't have it locally, especially, join us. And even talking with people like you guys and people like Mallory from Lacuna Loft, it sounds like there's really not a lot of virtual support groups being offered for the population, like anywhere else. And so I am thrilled to just always continue offering this as needed and see how we can continue growing, whether we expand it to co-survivors or we have grief groups for families who've lost a young adult cancer family member. You know, there's many, many avenues we can explore, and we plan to do that as we foresee just where the needs are and where the gaps are. We really want to just continue working with everyone on a national level to fill that, now that we know how it works virtually, and can incorporate those into our programming. So to answer your question, yes to both. Some of our offerings will remain regional and some will expand on a national level with time. It's funny because I still keep in mind that we're 2 months into operating. So we're making strides, but I know there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm just excited to always be open for brainstorming and expanding where there's a need.
Right.
Well, and that's really awesome that you're, you know, so open to people from outside the area being involved with your programs and things. Because one of the things that I found is that, you know, with my years of doing this now and having gone to events like CancerCon out in Denver when it was there, you know, I got to meet a few people from Montana. Well, one person from Montana, and he had never met anybody within 35 years of his own age who had cancer. You know, and it's one of those things you kind of forget that, you know, all cancer diagnoses suck, but there are certain places that it's much better to get diagnosed with cancer. And I'm not sure about Pittsburgh, but Cleveland, we have 3 hospitals here, you know, and
I know.
You know, and 2 great cancer hospitals. And so between the treatment and then also the community that you can develop, if you want a community, is so nice to have, because you might not necessarily want it, but it's nice to know that if you do want it, it's there. And so it's really wonderful that you guys are willing to open your doors to people, not just within your region, and extend your reach, let people in.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. We are so lucky not only to have this community locally, but to have the hospital systems like basically like 5 minutes away, you know, within a half an hour, I will say too. I mean, it's such a luxury here that sometimes I think we take it for granted, for sure.
I know we do here.
Yeah.
I'm sure we do. Yeah.
You know, and something else to touch on too that you said, and we've heard this a couple times doing the video cast, is the safe space, and being able to provide a safe space where people feel comfortable meeting and sharing as much as they want to share, or if they just want to be a fly on the wall to understand what else is going on, right? It's still a safe space, whether they want to share or not. And so that was kind of part A. And then part B of not a lot of online support groups, the comment you made about that across the country. It's interesting you say that, because we think that there are a lot of organizations across the country. Are there? Sure. However, people forget how big cancer really is and how many people really are being affected by this. And I know that that's something I keep stressing with a lot of organizations that we work with on a national basis, that you have to continue to open up your doors or explain who you are, because a lot of people have no idea. For example, we have some people, we've been doing these Instagram takeovers for our Elephants in Tea page. And we actually had somebody take over our Instagram account, had no idea that we had a magazine, that we had a website. They had just been following us on Instagram. And it just kind of was like a light bulb, like people only look in certain spots or what they know. And it's just very important to continue to having more resources on a locally and a national basis.
Absolutely.
It was just mind blowing to hear that. And so anyway, my point is, again, kudos that you are opening your doors on a national basis. We get people internationally. You mentioned you get someone from Toronto. We're up to 10 countries that write for Elephants in Tea now.
Astounding. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool. But at the same time, it's like, holy crap. There's really nothing in your country like this, that they can go to. And if there is, they just don't know about it, or whatever the case may be. But it just goes to show you the importance of keeping your doors open, right? And I think that, how you said it, your inner squad, if you will, the local people that you've started with, it's cool that they do say, yeah, open the doors, because everybody's kind of in this together. Cancer is universal. It doesn't matter where you're at or who you are. I think once you're a part of it, as we say, part of the herd, right? It's the family you never wanted, but you're glad you have it. So I think it's important to continue to have these types of digital meetups and in person. I think we all agree that in person is way more powerful than digital. But I think the digital component gives people an opportunity that might be more shy to kind of dip their toe in the water and see what might be out there. Granted, we have no in-person events we're going to right now. But anyways, I just wanted to point that out. So that's cool.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And honestly, it takes people like all of us who continue these conversations. And then I think slowly but surely, more people are going to hear it. They're going to feel inspired, and they're going to want to take the reins and do something locally in their community. So I think we're really sparking the change right now, which is just so incredible to see happen.
Totally. I absolutely agree. So let's move on to the next topic for you. So as we like to say at Elephants in Tea, the elephant in the room is cancer. If you had an elephant in the room with cancer right now, what would that be?
This was one that I thought, boy, it's an interesting one, because, I lead support groups. We talk about these hard topics all the time. And for me, I think there's two that really stick out in my mind. And one is the infertility. We've been talking about this a lot. Maybe that's why it's really at the forefront of my mind, at least in my groups, because when you're a young adult, you are told that you may not be able to have kids in your future, and sometimes you can consider your options as far as a woman, with what you can do to harvest eggs or what that looks like for you. But a lot of times what I'm hearing, and even my personal experience with it, is you don't have time to think about that until it's too late. You don't have time to make those decisions because you have so many other important factors about saving your own life, that it only comes up later on, due to miscommunication in the hospital, due to you not wanting to even think about that at the moment until later on, when you're deciding how does dating even look, how does that conversation look with your spouse, there's all these scenarios, right? But the bottom line is the cost and the expenses of infertility and treatments to preserve anything is challenging. And so I think it goes hand in hand from infertility to just intimacy and relationships, and what all that looks like is a huge elephant in the room. And then I also think death. I think, we've all faced our own mortality, and it's been extremely scary. And to think about having that conversation with young kids, and having that conversation with family members, and having that conversation with significant others, and thinking about writing a will, even a living will for that matter. I've not even written mine. Full disclosure. No one wants to do it. No one wants to have to think about that. No one wants to go there. So I think personally that those are the two elephants that I think are really most challenging, and it's hard to talk about in a group setting. Even it's really hard. I mean, but it's necessary, and I think when that comes up, knowing the resources and the professionals and those who are experts in those fields who can have that conversation and kind of guide people, whether it's the survivors or their loved ones, that's where it makes a difference. That's where it matters. And I have, I encourage anyone who's listening to this right now to, if you know that there's a need to face and confront one of those, to just rely on those who can help, like our social workers. So yeah, that's my two thoughts.
Steve, you're on mute. I'll let you go first.
And I'm happy you brought those two things up, because I mean, obviously those are your elephant in the room, but in reality, I would probably say those are probably the elephants in the room for every single cancer patient, and probably most people in this world too. And it's one of the things that, especially in Western culture, death is not something we're willing to talk about, as this very taboo subject to begin with. And then, infertility, it's this, I actually just wrote a research paper on it for school, and how it affected patients and their outcomes. And it's, and death is kind of, when it comes to those two topics, death is one of the ones that affects everybody equally, especially in the cancer world. But infertility does not affect us equally in the cancer world. Right. Because obviously, if I have to donate sperm, I can do it today. If you have to donate an egg, it takes you a month at best, and it might not work, and how often, if you have a late diagnosis, do you have a month, as you put it, to decide between, a possible child you might not even want to have and your life. And those are really hard things to talk about, because, what happens if you're not given that choice, and how that affects your treatment, and how it affects your trust with your doctors and your nurses. And interestingly enough, though, I talked to a few women recently who, were not given the choice, or had things happen to them due to issues with hospital systems, and it never affected their the way they viewed their treatment team, no matter what they did at the beginning or at the end.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they
interesting.
Yeah, and with some larger institutional failures across the country in the last couple of years, even those doctors and nurses still didn't see an effect on the way they treated their patients for some, so it's interesting that it's such a big issue, but yet we still, I don't know, I kind of went off on a tangent there, and I apologize, but it was just this
no need.
Such an interesting thing, because it's not just about not having children, it's about how it affects every other part of your life. From treatment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, talk about the strain on your relationship even. Like, let's just say, you're married, and then you get diagnosed with cancer, and you both wanted children, and then maybe you can't anymore. Or what does that look like? I mean, even like I said, the cost associated with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I don't know if I'm sure you know this, but I mean, there were people who had eggs their eggs preserved and then they lost them. So now they're in this grieving process on top of already having cancer. And then, what does that look like moving forward? So it is such a hard topic. And it's not just when you have to make that decision and then move forward in your life. It's an ongoing stressor and process. Like Mother's Day came and I had women in my group say, I don't even want kids, but the fact that that option was taken away from me was really hard on Mother's Day, so it's, and people outside of our arena don't understand that. And that's what's challenging is people outside of this, they don't understand when we talk about parents and coworkers and people not understanding why it can be an emotional time. They have no idea. So I appreciate these conversations so much and that you asked what these elephants are, because the more we can educate the general public, the more messaging we can get across, and hopefully it will get back to the hospital system so that we can start implementing these conversations proactively, even on a preventive side, prior to people being diagnosed.
Right.
Well, oh, sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The one thing I was going to say as well is that, as usually happens, people who are the most vulnerable, whether they're cancer patients or economically vulnerable, are the ones that deal with issues before regular society has to deal with them. And so, if we are able to have these conversations among ourselves, the hope is that, as our own doctors don't even understand what they should be doing. So if you can have these conversations with cancer patients, and the hope is that it can make it to the broader public and help everybody, because we're not the only ones that deal with infertility issues and death, but we're the ones that have become the masters or the experts in those areas.
Amen to that, brother.
Mhm.
I'm with you.
Yeah. I think, not to change what the two elephants in the room are, we had someone that did right for us, that social isolation from a master. It is the way that she put it, right, with everything that's going on with COVID. She basically was like, you think this is social isolation? I'll tell you what social isolation really is.
Exactly.
And I thought that was wonderful. It was outstanding. It's actually going to be in our June issue. But you bring up a great point, Steve, that this is a group of people that, when I say group of people, the AYA community in general sees a lot of issues. I mean, shoot, you guys were 15 and 19 years old when you guys had your first cancer. By the time you're 25, 30 years old, you're seeing more of life than you ever cared to see, and more in your 25 to 30 years of being alive than most 70 to 80-year-olds will see in their entire lifetime.
Right.
And then adding the death component to it as well. It's even for myself, I use myself as an example. That's, recently I have spoken with a couple of people that either are going to do something for Elephants in Tea or writing for Elephants in Tea that are facing or have faced death. And to the point where they're terminal and it's coming. And, the one thing I've learned is you have to treat them as normal as possible, still crack jokes. Don't say you're sorry, because that's like the last thing that someone wants to hear when you're essentially, this is it. You don't know how much time you have left. And I think it is almost impossible to ever feel comfortable with the death conversation as much as we try to prepare for it.
Right.
It's the toughest thing you'll ever deal with, I think, in talking with people like that. As far as the infertility elephant in the room, that is a conversation that people really have no idea unless you're actually in it. And, it just, unless you have, and I'm speaking personally here, unless you're in it, you have no idea. And people around you, it's not as though anyone's trying not to care, they just really don't know. And we can apply that, I think, to so many things when it comes to cancer, but the infertility stuff it's such a unique thing. And the one thing both of you didn't mention was not only when you're married, but it's hard enough to try to tell somebody we're trying to get a relationship with that you have cancer, but then to also say, I may or may not even be able to have a kid one day, like, damn. So.
Nice to meet you. I had cancer and I may be infertile, but other than that.
Cool.
It's hard. That's what, like, those are the conversations that we have in our support groups. It's like, how do you disclose all of that? And when do you disclose all of that? You know, it's,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, it's tough.
it
And
is
that's why
tough.
they're elephants in the room, right? Because they are taboo topics that not everybody wants to talk about. And frankly, I feel like the majority of the people that we even bring on would hesitate to talk about it like we are right now.
Well,
So
I love talking about it because it's a hard topic and people need to, if they won't talk about it, I know they need to hear about it. So I appreciate you both bringing
yeah,
it up today and talking about it with me.
absolutely. Thank you for bringing
And
them up.
Stephanie, you know, and I both, and all three of us know, you know, that uncomfortable conversations are the ones that we need to have.
Yes.
They're usually the ones
More of
with the
them.
most important message behind them.
That may be another YouTube channel you have.
Oh, uncomfortable conversations.
All the elephants, get the whole herd.
Touche. All right. So the last thing I wanted to bring up today, your amazing husband. I have to just
Aw.
first of all, his workout videos every morning that he does. What do you guys do? Monday through Friday? Is that at 7:15? I'm giving away.
Monday through Friday, 7:15 Eastern Standard Time. I have to start thinking of mentioning that because I've never had to do that until now.
There you go.
7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can also do them later in the day if you're not a morning person.
Yes.
You know, we're avid athletes and gym goers and fitness enthusiasts. I'm not on his level, so let me preface it by saying that. But
Not many people are on his level.
no, no. But you know, incorporating this has been fun. We're big believers in how you start your morning is really how your day is going to go. So yeah, so it's been fun and it's free workouts. So, and I tend to be the moderator or what's the word I'm looking for? I modify the workout, not moderate, modify.
Modifier.
The more you learn about me, you'll learn that I tend to mix up words and it comes out totally wrong. Like Matt has now a journal in his phone of everything I've said wrong. And he tends to pull them up now and when he needs a laugh and he'll be like, oh, you said this totally wrong. And he starts cracking up. So anyway.
We won't judge you less
these
for that.
videos that we're talking.
Facebook.
Now
Right?
that Nick has Matt's phone number, there might be blackmail in my future.
They're on Facebook, right? Facebook Live is what he does, or is it Instagram?
Oh yeah.
Facebook. So
Facebook. Oh,
Live.
and Instagram Live too. I always forget that. Yeah.
So you know, I know that Matt recently ran what's it called, an ultra marathon, right? 100 miles.
He ran. Yeah. Yep.
And that was to help raise awareness for YASU.
Get it out. Yes.
All right. And so before so I guess where I'm going with this first part of this question was, it's ridiculous the fact that he ran 100 miles. Like, I'm not trying to underplay that. But when I realized he was doing it in the same like street, basically, right? Wasn't just like a neighborhood. Like, dear Lord, that is ridiculous. Like, I'm not a runner. I am someone that has to be playing a sport. I love playing basketball and football. I'll keep playing that as long as I can, both of them. But because I just get my ADD kicks in, right?
Oh yeah.
And the fact that like when it was when he was like mile like 60 or 70 with one of your updates, that he was literally doing it like in the same cul-de-sac, like down and back. I was like, wait, what the hell? What? And, I mean,
our cul-de-sac is a half-mile one way. Like if you go and drive to the end of the cul-de-sac, it's a half mile. And he did back and forth till 100 miles. Oh no. So yeah, it took 29 hours. We did not sleep for 40 hours. We just calculated that last night. We were laying in bed and we're like, how long were we awake? Yeah, and we started a virtual fundraiser before that. So to wrap up the fundraiser, and thanks to you for supporting that, my friend. We were calling it to grow the giving circle. So there was a giving circle of women who chose us as a beneficiary, and each woman in that circle donated at least $25. So we turned it around into a fundraiser, and his run was to wrap up and essentially close the circle as he asked for people to pledge per mile. And he's done these things in the past. The man has done anything from a 24-hour bike ride in Australia where he biked 250 miles to the world's toughest mudder, which is a 24-hour tough mudder. He's just crazy. I don't know what else to say.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love him.
So
Yeah.
where I was going with this, other than the fact that just to brag that I know Matt and that you're married to Matt, how important is it, right, to start your own organization and have that support as a partner, as a spouse?
You're gonna make me cry, and I don't want to cry.
All right. While you think about it, I would just say, while my wife is not like Matt, where she's on like Facebook and stuff like that, I know that without her, I could not do the things that I do. You know what I'm saying? Especially now with a 3-month-old, right?
There's no way. I mean, Matt didn't know me when I was going through treatment. I met Matt in 2012, literally when I said, I'm starting a support group for young adults. And I started this. Like, I was like, this is who I am. And he was like so impressed by it. And this was like just a monthly support group meeting, but I was like, I'm going to impress him. Like on our first date is when I was like, I'm a survivor and I'm starting this program. Like, and it's going to be huge. You just wait. So we always laugh at that. But I swear to you, I would not be able to do this without him. I mean, fortunately, I have the ability to run this as a volunteer organization thanks to his help. I mean, he has helped raise like $75,000 over the past 8 years, and he has taken it all upon himself to do this fundraising. I mean, the guy is just my hero, and he knows these survivors. He comes to our social outings. I mean, he is like family to them, and he is just the light that they need to see sometimes. Like, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he has been most supportive, especially when I was just building the new brand. I mean, I was working full time and building this brand in the nights, like in the evenings and on the weekends, and tirelessly. And he was there night and day to support me. So I would not be sitting here having these conversations with the two of you had I been doing it on my own. A, I would have lost my mind, and B, I probably would still be just working at another job, doing 10 million other things without having all of my heart and passion in this sector where I am right now. Like, there's just no way I'd be here, who I am today, and what I'm doing without him. And I mean it wholeheartedly. Awesome. He is my #1 fan. And I'll even say this, for people who are going through treatment, having a champion in your corner is such an asset and luxury. I beg anyone out there, if they need a champion, to contact us, if not me particularly, because I know the importance of it. And you both know that too. I mean, just having someone in your corner, I beg anyone out there to find that. Whether you have cancer or not, let's face it, life is hard. You need that support. And I have people in my group who have absolutely no family support. No one behind them until they found us. We're like their family now. So all of that being said, he is my hero. He is my angel in life.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking.
Of course. And, I echo with what you're saying as far as just being there, right? Being there for someone that's going through it, even if they're a Steelers fan. I think it's important for them to be there. But yeah, no, I've had a couple of people recently that have been newly diagnosed, or someone in their family has been newly diagnosed, I should say. And they asked me what can they do, and I just be there, right?
Yeah.
And that is such an important thing, I think, that you mentioned there. But wow, Matt is good for Matt. I might have to steal him as like a fundraising person for us. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Well, he's in the city challenge. He's just not going to support you then. Everything other than that, he'll support. But...
Fair enough. And people will hear about that soon. Hopefully there's a football season, right?
I know. And now you have his phone number, so you're stuck with him forever because he saw your cards behind you. So you have a friend forever now.
Steve, he's a huge sports cards guy. And he's going to show the Brown stuff. But yeah, so but I will say I think we can end on a non-aggressive note that we do agree that we like this guy here. So
yeah, all right.
So
mutual agreement there. Absolutely.
Scolettis are LeBron James fans. It's cool.
We have to send this video to LeBron.
Just that clip.
That's all.
Oh, it's awesome. Steve, go ahead. You gonna say something? No?
No.
Took a deep breath and I caught you on it.
About it.
Nice. I do. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. This has been awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out there as far as what you guys are doing right now, or just anything in general, I guess?
We're planning a fun event in October for those who like Halloween, and I'll leave it at that. If you like Halloween and want to have fun, whether you're a survivor or not, we are dedicating the night to survivors. I don't want to give out too much information, but definitely follow us, Young Adult Survivors United. We have a website, which I'll announce, but you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search Young Adult Survivors United. Our website is yasurvivors.org. We'll have more information on that fun event, which I hope the two of you are involved this year. And honestly, if you're a survivor, find your community, whether it's local or virtually, online, national. There are communities out there for you. So find them. And if you're a co-survivor, same thing. Never assume that there's not a community for you, because we are definitely putting that as a priority, at least in our sector. And never assume that survivors are just well off and don't need you. So for any co-survivors watching this, never assume. And for professionals, reach out to us if they identify gaps in their services or support, because we're all in this together. That's the biggest message I can say is, I know with COVID, everyone says like, in this together, but really we are. And when it comes to cancer, I don't care who you are, even if you're not an AYA survivor, we all know someone who can help, right? So I just beg people to reach out if they need the support, no matter what that looks like.
Awesome.
Thank you
Appreciate
both.
that.
It was such an honor, and
Yeah,
we could talk night and day if time wasn't of essence.
totally. No, and again, like we said, thank you so much for coming on today. Steve, anything else I'm missing?
No, just thank you so much, Stephanie, and stay safe out there.
Thanks, and congrats on being a badass.
You
really are.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Stephanie, for joining us. A reminder to everybody to please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get updates whenever a new episode comes out. This was our 4th episode. We are going to do 12 episodes of this first season, then take a break, and then we'll come back for season 2. Next week, episode 5 is going to be the CEO of Stupid Cancer, Allison Silverman. So we're pumped to have Allison on. And she'll be talking a little bit about the Digital Cancer Con that'll be on June. Check my calendar. June 6th
and 7th?
June 6th and 7th, yes. So we're excited. And teaser alert, Steve and I will be one of the keynote speakers for that. So
ooh, good. I'm registered. I'm ready.
There you go. There you go. We're in the first session, so don't miss it.
Oh, I'll be there with my pal, baby.
Shame. Well, we're going to let the Steeler fan go. No, but honestly, thanks again, Stephanie. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Sure.
And we'll be back next week.
Thank you.